Okay. Okay. That should do it. Alright, somebody please tell us if you
I'm
can
turning
hear
the
us
sound
now.
on my computer, so obviously it'll just come up now.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that.
So we can check
Yeah,
it.
but it'll pick up on the mic though. So
Do you want us to go back up to the top and we'll just start again?
we can, yeah. Right,
See if
okay.
this
It'll
comes
just
through.
be after when this comes up, then we'll know.
So we just wait and see if our sound's
Yeah,
actually
let's
been
just see if this
fixed.
works.
And if it is, hello, welcome to the channel. You can now hear us. This is Skirt and Fleur. Oh, here we go. Moment of truth.
Oh, I can hear something.
Okay, so sound's now back on. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Skirt and Fleur.
Sorry about that little audio error.
Yes. Sorry, but we'll get back. We'll start again from where we were, shall we? We'll start from the beginning. So today our discussion is on Theresa Maybe. Are her days numbered? So we're going to look at Theresa May when she got first elected and the possible alternatives on who else could have stood in that race. And were they better candidates? Why she maybe won that election? Obviously talking about her first few days in office and her speech. Then looking at the general election. What, did she lose? Did she win? Why she maybe lost? Why her campaign wasn't very good, or was it good? And then, of course, the discussion now as a result of that election campaign, a Tory possible leadership race again, and the possible candidates, and a close discussion on Chris Fairhurst's topic, Moggmentum. So
You gotta love it. You gotta love the Mog. Anyway, we've already basically said this, but I know that nobody's probably heard it on the stream
so we
because
may as well do it again.
we're just gonna breeze through it quickly because I messed up the audio, which some of you may have seen. I know that my Shamrock123 hopefully is still watching and hopefully saw that, because I'm going to answer your question on gummy bears now. If there are too many gummy bears, then we're not here because we will have ate them all. But yeah, too many bears. If there's gummy bears, you're fine. If it's grizzlies though, one is too much. I think I could take about 3 at most.
But however, you know,
I
in gay slang, bear means someone, you know, who's very hairy and, well...
Well,
I've never had a three...
I was going to say, it's never too many for you.
Anyway, let's get back onto the first topic. So we're starting right at the beginning. I'm going to start with a discussion, obviously, about the Tory leadership race that ran while Cameron had announced, you know, someone was going to replace him. He was resigning because of the result of Brexit. And so we're going to focus mainly the starting discussion, aren't we, on May and Leadsom and those two kind of candidates. So do you want to give us your opening thoughts on what you think about Leadsom as a character?
Well,
and obviously, you know,
from my point of view, I remember when it was going on in 2016, the Conservative leadership race, and you know a lot more about this than me, and I'm actually, like, I remember when it came to Leadsom, she sort of came out of nowhere, and the first thing I remember reading about, the first time I saw her was, I was in Aldi, getting some shopping. This is true. Like, I was getting some shopping with my dad in Aldi. Like, I think he saw some deals on, you know, the middle aisles where they get all the bargains. And we went to Till with whatever we bought. I can't remember, but the first thing I saw on the front cover of the Daily Mirror was Maggie Mark II, and I was just there, and it was a picture of Andrew Leadsom, and I was like, I think, do you think they're being a bit pedantic? Do you think they're being just a tiny bit pedantic? And I was a bit. I was a bit confused at the time. My dad said to me, I hope she doesn't get in, I hope Theresa gets in now. I was saying, like, and I said to him why, and he said, well, she was the only Remainer, wasn't she? And I think that creates, like, quite an interesting dynamic. Like, Andrea Leadsom, like, 2 points as to why Leadsom maybe should have been the Conservative Party leader, because one, she terrified the crap out the left, and that's always a good thing if you're a Tory party leader.
Kian, leave.
Oh, so it's Kian. Hi, Kian.
I can tell that's Kian with questions on bees.
The bees.
How many? There can never be too many bees unless you are in a South African cricket match and you have to get cancelled because there were too many bees.
Oh, that did happen.
Anyway, right. So my sort of discussion.
Oh,
yeah,
no,
you were making your 2 points, weren't you? Yeah, finish those 2 points. Yeah.
She terrified the crap out of the left, which is always a good thing.
And
terrified the crap out of Labour. And the other thing that I would have is she was part of the Leave campaign, I believe. Like, she believed more in Leave than she did Remain. And I think that it's quite ironic that Theresa May and David Cameron both back Remain, and both of them, like, you know, Cameron left because he lost, and Theresa May was then elected. Like, it just seems to me like, you know, a little bit of dynasty building, a little bit.
See, because of course Cameron came out in his speech and was saying, I have to resign to my
because
views don't align with the country.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you elect
Theresa May. It makes no bloody sense.
It was the same. My thing with Leadsom now, I was saying this earlier, but obviously there was no sound. Fantastic BBC documentary run this year. I recommend anyone to watch it, which is about this leadership race and all the back stuff that went on, obviously with Boris Johnson, Gove, and there was a lot on Theresa May and Leadsom. And it was sort of put across that Leadsom really didn't want to run on her own to be leader of the Conservative Party. She wanted to be Chancellor, and that makes sense. She has a large background in working within, she worked within a bank for a long time. She was very interested in becoming Chancellor for the Exchequer, and so that's what she wanted to do under a Gove leadership. The problem was, of course, the vote got split between Johnson and Gove. Johnson then didn't run. Gove looked like he backstabbed him, and Gove never could promise outright Leadsom that position. So she decided to run on her own.
Well, she managed to beat Michael Gove in the second round, as we can see here.
Yeah, and you can see on the votes there, 84 to 46. And I would suggest
doubled the count.
And
much,
I'd absolutely
over Gove, and then Theresa May again on Leadsom.
Yeah, but I'd absolutely suggest that. Just a couple of things to talk about on that point. One, Leadsom was very strong. Coming from the back of the Brexit campaign, she was in both the main debates and spoke very strongly. There's a moment I highlighted when she speaks against Nicola Sturgeon and mocks her because she likes having referendums done again, and, you know, that she'd probably want the EU referendum done again, which was very funny when she said it. And she just gave this really strong independent stance. Ruth Davidson, another one of those, and we'll talk about her later, obviously.
Yeah, we will be talking
today,
about
but
Ruth Davidson
she was
later on.
one of the real strong figures to come out of that campaign. And secondly, what I'd like to say on those votes is and we'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, what I'd secondly just like to say about that is I actually think those votes are quite irrelevant, because I think if she'd have stayed in the campaign long enough, I actually think she'd have beaten Theresa May in the Conservative Party members' vote, because I think the Conservative Party members overwhelmingly voted for leave, overwhelmingly wanted a Thatcher-like figure, and and overwhelmingly I think Leadsom presented that more than May did, and I actually think she would have been a really popular choice. She did have two problems in her campaign that really got to the forefront by media. One was her attitudes towards LGBT and the fact she seemed way out of a distance on those kind of issues. And the second one, obviously, on the mother debacle. You know, where she said that Theresa May didn't really know what it was like because she wasn't a mother. And that sprung a huge debate on whether that was a legitimate claim, and ultimately led her to resigning from the campaign, which I thought was a shame, because, you know, and Corbyn even mocked May for this, you know, because May made a jibe at him saying, you know, our Labour Party process goes on very long, but at least they gave their members a vote. You know, the Tories just through the back closet really just gave themselves a leader.
A lot of people's thinking, wasn't it, that Leadsom probably would have won if the members, you know, had more say in the election process. I think a lot of people were thinking that, like, but I can see also as well, like, from my perspective on Corbyn, I can see why they didn't do that as well, and I think it makes a lot more sense.
Can I ask you something about, you know, point of view. Because you were mentioning in the last video I did, which was about Corbyn, so check that out if you want to hear us talking about Corbyn, about, you know, kind of keeping quiet on topics he's not strong. And obviously May, throughout the whole of the EU campaign, was so quiet. And
yes, she was.
Do you think that really led her to favour in this kind of leadership race? Because she basically said nothing on the issue in one interview.
Personally, I don't think that's the sign of a good leader. I think a leader should be strong on the big issues. They have to be, because they are the issues that they are going to be having the deciding role on whether they like it or not. That's the size of it, frankly. You know, I don't think any leader of any party, like, they all wanted to remain because they all want a nice cosy government for the next time they get in, don't we? Yeah. And I think, you know, leaders had to step up to the challenge, and I think that Theresa May, before she was elected Conservative Party leader and she ran for it, she didn't step up to that challenge at all. Like, she was only just in the background, behind Cameron, behind George Osborne, like, behind those sorts of figures, in a hope that she'd be able to solidify their position. Like,
almost like a steward to a manager sort of role. That's the only real way I can put it, but that's because I work at a bar, obviously. So
yeah, I'd probably say it's quite ironic, isn't it? You know that, and it did quite frustrate me that the Leave side of the Conservative Party, which was actually very strong and very large, couldn't assemble
they were outspoken as well.
Couldn't assemble themselves around one candidate, which was absolutely remarkable.
The thing with that is, though, is to do with Gove. Like, Gove stabbed Boris in the back, and I think that Boris should have been the leader. I think that Boris should have been, like, all the logic was pointing to Boris being the next leader of the Conservative Party after Leave One. But I don't think
Boris was the right. I don't think Boris, in terms of being a
politician,
would have been terrible prime minister.
Yeah,
however,
he'd
have been popular.
He's
got such a charisma with him that I think he probably would have won.
Well, this is the thing: people love him and hate him. Like I put it this way: like us two up in the north, I don't think we would have seen Boris Johnson as prime minister. I think we would have just been thinking.
But even like in the public debates I mentioned, Leadsom had that charisma. She had a strong tone. Like, to use Farage's line, she has the charisma of a damp rag, quite frankly, does Theresa May.
Yeah, it's true. When
you watch her...
Like, Maybot, like, hashtag Maybot actually became a thing from the left. Like, we know the left can't meme, and yet they've still come up with that, and it's stuck, which is impressive.
And to be fair, it was a good meme, because
she
was like a robot.
It wasn't too bad. I've seen better, but that's just me.
Yeah, right. And also, I'd like to say, like, obviously with the Boris Johnson running for leadership, I'd like to ask this kind of question. So Boris obviously got a lot of slack for joining the Leave campaign. Also got a lot of slack because of his attitude towards the 350 million figure that he posted around the NHS. And do you feel that actually Boris Johnson, standing as a main figure in the Leave campaign, actually ended up not doing him good in terms of running for leader and eventually of the party?
Well, I'd say if you're going to run for leader of a party and other party leadership candidates try to backstab you, the only way you're going to become leader is not letting them backstab you. Yeah. So, because Boris let himself get backstabbed by Gove, he was never going to be the right choice for leader, because eventually he was always going to get thrown off. Like, look at the only way I can really make the case for this is look at Thatcher and Heseltine in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like, Thatcher made a mess of Heseltine, and then obviously Paul Tax ruined it.
I tell you what I thought, though. Because obviously Cameron won the leadership election coming from nowhere, young politician. And I thought Stephen Crabb would do a lot better, and that's the name I wrote down.
Stephen Crabb did come straight out, though. He went out in the first round, I think, didn't he?
He did, but that surprised me, because he seemed to me like a very Cameron figure. Similar politics to Cameron, similar age and being young, similar, had just come from nowhere, just obviously come into working pensions in the cabinet. So virtually come from nowhere, rising up the ranks, and I thought, here smells a new Cameron. And of course, completely hated that.
Bear in mind, though, if you're trying to replace a leader that's just stepped down, don't look anything like him. That's something that is very important.
Then why like May?
People want change, and people want change. So to elect Stephen Crabb, who literally looks like Cameron for all intents and purposes, is not a good move. Just from a PR perspective from the Conservative Party. So I can see why he was instantly voted out. To be honest, and same with Dr. Liam Fox as well. I think Dr. Liam Fox was too right-wing in his views on Brexit.
I do think he was definitely pitched and was always going to be a future cabinet kind of a position.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things I would say that I think is flawed with the way the Conservative leadership party race runs and will continue to run in the future is that it sticks itself to the members of Parliament and then goes to the party and only offers them two candidates to the members. Whereas I think a more diverse choice to the members of a wide-ranging Conservative Party views is only going to be better in terms of a leadership race.
It's a difficult one.
Speaking of that, what happened to the Labour Party when they did that?
I was going to say, you're going into the question of... well, it technically boils down into the question of, is Socratic democracy right? Like, Socrates... used to believe in a democracy of the elites. Like, they would make all the decisions, they would be the demos, but it would be a democratic system. But you'd have to prove yourself educated or a leader in business or something like that to be a political figure. And it's whether the question is that the right way to do it, or is to give it to the whole demos and go for the Aristotelian method of wisdom of the crowds? Which way is the right way?
Yeah, because I'd say giving the choice to the members and giving them that diverse choice is better, because although you might get someone as far on one of the parties you get Corbyn, imagine if it hadn't have been the wide range. What would have the Labour voted to be the two representatives? You'd have had, Andy Burnham and Yvette Cooper, like the most centrist people on the Labour Party, So it's just like, would have been no choice whatsoever.
I voted for Burnham. I was happy to vote for
Burnham wasn't too bad a stance, and that's maybe a bit harsh. But, the... who was the other one who ran?
Well, it was Yvette Cooper, Andy Burnham.
You know the one I mean.
I know the one you mean. The one that was considered the
Does it begin with L?
It's what's her name now?
Oh, this is burning. This is burning.
I'm going to look this up.
We're looking it up because it's really annoying me. But anyway, but it would probably be between her and the other one, and Yvette Cooper. And it's like, really, Yvette Cooper only lit herself up towards the end of the campaign, and it would be no choice because they both have similar political views, and that's what the Conservative Party ultimately ends up doing when it leads itself to Liz Kendall. That's what I knew it began with L. Have met Dr. Fox, he was my local MP before uni. Definitely too right-wing to lead a major party, though. He would be an absolute poison to floating voters. But
I think that's a fair comment.
It's a fair comment, but let me, Liz Kendall, thank you. Let me make this point. Are we living in a political age now where you cannot get too far in terms of because Corbyn represents a wing of the Labour Party, which I think anyone with a political mind before the last general election would have turned around and said he's far too left-wing to ever get anywhere near power, and yet his vote has increased. So, and when you hear a lot of...
We will go into this later, but personally my stance on that is Corbyn's vote didn't necessarily increase because of Corbyn's charisma. It was more because of Theresa May's disastrous campaign.
And that's fair, and we'll talk about that later.
We will be talking about that later.
I don't think Dr. Fox would have been a too bad choice, however, because I do think the Conservative Party, and what it seemed when their members were polled, and why Leadsom led amongst the members, was that they were looking for someone who was maybe slightly further right.
Yeah. It's because it's a counter for Corbyn, and we will be going on to that later with Moggmentum
and also
as well.
Because all the what you would call the centrist Conservatives all voted for all voted for the centre. All the Remainers were tended to be to the centre of the Conservative Party, and obviously the majority of the Conservative Party voted to leave the European Union, and so probably that would have correlated in why they wanted more right wing. I'd also make the point when it says because Corbyn doesn't hate gays, Theresa May sort of has tried to make up a stance, just like Hillary Clinton. I would describe they have a very similar stance. When it was unpopular to voice the opinion, they got interviewed and they voted against everything, and now it's popular and they're both leaders of their parties. They go, oh yes, I agree with it, I think there's a lot of politicians who hate homosexuals and hate lesbians, but we're not getting into that discussion, are we?
Well, my frank point on that is, we're not going to go into that discussion, but can I just... my personal stance is, I don't think they hate anybody. They just literally blow with the wind so much you can't tell anymore. But you can call me naive on that one. You definitely can if you want.
Theresa May does have, can I just say, a terrible track record in terms of LGBT rights,
does.
and we're not gonna go into that. She does. But Leadsom had an even worse one, so that's probably why she didn't win.
Well, they're both not very good.
It's like picking the best of the worst when you come to Conservative politicians on LGBT rights. Anyway. Why don't we move on to... right, May's got elected. Let's move on to her first few days and her first speech.
We've just moved on to that now. But if you actually look at it, though, it's very, very similar to Cameron's. And going back to the point I made before about when you brought up Stephen Crabb, saying don't elect a leader that looks like the last one because people will change. Look at the way this is written. It means we believe in a union, not just between the nations of the United Kingdom, but between all of our citizens, whoever we are and wherever we're from. It means fighting against the burning injustice that if you're poor, you will die on average 9 years earlier than all the others. If you're black, you're treated more harshly in the criminal justice system than if you're white.
That's so funny. So
this is the person that also believes Sharia law should have equal representation in Britain.
Yes.
She did say that.
But interestingly, can I just point out to that start bit? Believe in unions. Obviously, it's a Conservative and Unionist party. And her speech got lauded a lot because she mentioned the fact that they are Conservative and Unionist party, and just kept mentioning Scotland and we need to stay together. Brexit, we need to stay together.
The key point I want to make about all that, about that little quote there, is what does it sound like to you? What does it sound like? Cameron Big Society? Do you think it sounds a little bit like a continuation of that without the title on it?
It does, but can I also mention it annoys me so much because it shows how much the left have dominated political culture and culture in society.
Yes, they have.
Look at how she just identity politics has taken over that speech.
Yeah.
If you're black, then your main issue is being treated harshly by the criminal justice system. White working class boys don't go to university. If you're in a state, she talks about a union as a unionist party and bringing everyone together, but yet and this next part of her speech singles out each minority and tells them why they're disadvantaged.
And then you've got the poor as well, like going back to, like, you know, we'll move away from the cultural Marxism and just go for the full-on Marxism here.
But it's also fascinating because if I didn't tell you that this was a speech from Theresa May and I wiped out the top part,
you'd probably
about
think
unionism,
it was a speech from Corbyn if you just went for this section here, yeah.
You'd think this was Corbyn. You'd absolutely
Oh no,
think
I
this was
completely
Corbyn.
agree.
One of the things I will launch a speech for...
Here's another one as well that you'll... Well, we haven't discussed gender pay gap yet, but we know
we
that...
Can, we can do it in a minute. I'd just
we
like
both
to,
can.
Yeah, like, I'd like to say, like, you know... what was I going to say? I can't remember what I was going to say now. You interrupted me and I've forgotten, Ferris.
Oh, sorry, Chris.
Anyway, do you want to discuss pay gap? Because there's a quote there. If you're a woman, you're more likely to less than a man.
We both know where this figure comes from, and let's be honest, we both know it's utter crap.
Yeah, like
in general, it's all based on averages. It's all based on average pay. It's all based on average earnings. But when you actually break it down, we have laws in place to stop that. 1970 Equal Pay Acts. We have, you know, when you actually boil it down to hours worked, average wage, it makes a lot of sense as to why this isn't the case. Like, you know, it's down to people's personal preferences, essentially.
Yeah, and like I would say again, like,
it's not down to sexism or like. But I'll put it this way: the ultimate counter argument to this is, if women can be employed for a quarter, like for 76 cents on the dollar for men, or whatever it is in Britain, is it 80p? 80p per man or something like that. Why don't all the companies just employ women? What's the point of employing men? You're losing profits, aren't you?
Yeah, I'd say one of the things on that
rubbish.
is like obviously in our first video, which was discussing Jodie Whittaker becoming the Doctor, and there was a slight discussion there about feminism, etc. And in that, I'll just give a quick brief on. I do describe myself as a second-wave feminist, but I do like to look at things very critically, and I would have to agree with Ferris on this point, which is quite unfortunate because it does seem like a main part of feminism at the moment, discussing pay gap and those kind of issues.
It's
and
stopped being
in
about
my opinion,
equality
on the
and it started
basis of
becoming about
evidence,
equity.
there is no such evidence that you could say adequately enough there is a pay gap, because no one realistically says that a woman in the same job as a man is going to earn less. That is not what the statistics show. The statistics are taken as a mean average, and they don't bear in mind the fact that a lot of women leave for maternity pay, etc. And so statistics are quite flawed, and that's not taken into account, and it's an important point to make out. But it's interesting that you're hearing Theresa May like sound like Corbyn. She's just making all these positive...
Yes.
But she didn't do that in the campaign. She didn't do that in the campaign, did she? She didn't make these points in the campaign.
But I think the biggest point as to where she sounds like Cameron, like, look at this here. Like, that was the main crux of Cameron in 2010 when he got in. One nation government. And she's just said exactly the same thing. And that sounds to me like a continuation, not change. And it's very, very clear from the reason why Cameron stepped down was because he was out of touch with the public. Theresa May is still out of touch with the public. Why, in God's name, I'm here questioning, is how she got elected by the Conservative Party. Like, it makes no sense. There's clearly...
Yeah, one of her slogans, didn't you say in the campaign at the start, was for the many, not privileged few. That was Labour's campaign slogan.
It literally was. They literally nicked it off her.
Yeah.
But then again, it's not the only thing they've nicked off her. Like, she was the original... was the original turn of phrase for the Nasty Party, which was her. It was her work.
We'll just scroll down and look at the rest of this
Wasn't that in the
article.
Conservative Party conference 1988?
Yeah, one of the things that Theresa May's speech was widely applauded as being very, very good because it started appealing towards the centre ground, which she obviously needed to do in the election.
Yeah,
and we'll talk about whether she actually did that in the election. But one of the things I'd like to mention is my own personal opinions on this speech is I found it very rich. I find it very rich. She came into Parliament with her voting records and everything, and she came into office and she said, you know, if you suffer from mental health problems, well, Tory party has one of the worst records you can have on having mental health
I
problems,
know,
and got
believe in a
under
keep calm, carry
They were
on, don't
under
they?
investigation by the UN for violating mental health issues. So
I
they are
didn't actually
terrible
know
on that. They were under investigation under Cameron, and that has continued, etc. So they're not a very good party for that, and they make a lot of promises on those kind of issues and arguably don't fulfil on them. So I found it very cheap, very big that she was coming through it, but it also made to me, and it started jigging, and I was like, these are issues that are the bread and butter Corbyn. And it was really surprising to hear someone like... It just symbolised that she was almost desperate to cling to votes.
Yeah, but I think
Before
though,
she started.
But this is the thing, and this is the reason why I'll say she's a bad leader here. I think she has completely misjudged where the centre ground is. And that is very easy to do as a politician.
Yes.
It's very, very easy to do. Because as soon as you see Corbyn creating so much grassroots support and developing so much, so much momentum for his own campaign.
Ooh, I've got a good question.
Shameless plug there for momentum.
I've got a question for you, Ian. I like this question.
Can I just
Finish your point on the centre ground.
Yeah, but
It's
very easy to misconstrue where you think the centre ground is for public opinion at the time, because they all saw Corbyn up and coming, and I think she's just tried to head him off at the pass, as it were, in politics. Oh, Corbyn's saying all this stuff, it looks like he's getting a ton of votes, I better head him off. But look at the polling numbers. Look at the polling numbers. You were completely off with that. And all you've done there is actually move further away from the centre ground and move your party further left, which you didn't have to do, because if you're going to move further left, you're not going to take votes off Corbyn, because he's already taken those votes. And it's not where the centre ground is anyway. You've got to look at that more objectively, and you've got to be more careful in how you play it. And I think that makes Theresa May the unwise choice in terms of a party leader. I think that somebody could have been able to analyse the political situation in Britain better, perhaps.
Yeah, my question I wanted to ask you, right, on the centre ground.
Yeah, continue.
I found that in the election, obviously, Theresa May was representing, arguably she's talking of a quite right-wing manifesto, some of those policies that she came out with, especially the one in relation to the elderly, which proved very unpopular.
The dementia tax.
The dementia
as
tax,
it was coined eventually.
Is there a centre ground? Was that her mistake? There is no centre ground.
Well, personally, from my point of view on politics, when I came to university, I used to believe that left and right were very, very, very set and very cemented in politics, like the left being more socialist and the right being more capitalist, as you would from an economic perspective, as you would in modern day. But if you actually look at the origins of the terms left and right and how they've changed over the years to mean different things for different times, they become very nebulous, and it seems to me that the only purpose of using the terms left and right is for political tribalism. If you can say, oh, I don't like him, he's a right-winger, and say, I'm a left-winger, it means you get that support base straight away. And let's be honest, we're human. Humans are pretty much hardwired to think tribally. So it makes sense that people fall into this trap. But from what I've learned to do in my political education, is instead of thinking left and right about every issue and trying to find a set of policies that all fit into my left-wing bubble or right-wing bubble, I've just found it's far easier just to focus on the policies themselves and take a stance on every single one. It's the only way to be truly central, but you probably won't be described as central by anybody else, because all the people that think in those terms of left and right will either call you a left-winger or a right-winger whenever you don't agree with them on one point. It's quite interesting, because obviously you're left-wing and you support Brexit, which would make me say, either if I was a left-winger, I'd be naturally inclined to say, well, he's not as left-wing as me, and it becomes an ideological purity test. Or if you're a right-winger and you said, I support Brexit but I like Corbyn, I'd be thinking a very similar thing. And it'd be very difficult for me to make my mind up. I think it's how the media and how politicians confuse the game and confuse public opinion in order to win votes through confusion.
I would say Theresa May and where they tried to take her was so confusing, because they tried to take her all directions. So she comes into office and she makes this speech that we've just discussed.
That's incredibly
and
left-wing.
It's incredibly left wing, and she looked like she was trying to appeal to the centre ground. But yet, first Prime Minister's questions, and this is sort of the last thing we're going to talk about, obviously, before we move on to the actual general election result that's recently happened. There's this moment in the for her first Prime Minister's question where she does the classic Thatcher lean in, and the papers lauded it. They put her all over the papers saying, "Next Thatcher." Going to be the next Maggie. Everyone loves Maggie, and all this. And it was like,
well,
so
not
she
everybody in the North.
it taken 1 week for her to be seen as this left wing appealist to Margaret Thatcher taking the party far to the right, and there was no clarity really on where May really was. There was no real, this is how we're going to try push her. She could have come in. I think she'd have been better portraying herself as the actual Thatcher image. Not Thatcher herself, but being close to that image. She'd have been better off coming in and not making a speech that was so pandery to the left, but make herself distinct from the left, as this clear alternative from Corbyn, that just said, Corbyn talks a load of rubbish, we don't agree with what Corbyn says on the right wing. I'm not saying that I personally think Corbyn talks a lot of rubbish, but I'm just saying that she should have come in and presented herself as the more right-wing figure. Not saying she should go far right as Thatcher, but try present herself in that light, because as we all know, Thatcher was the most popular Prime Minister that Britain has ever had. And the most hated. But but that's just like May and Corbyn. They've got to have this big divide. And why was she trying to spread herself so much? That was what Blair politics was about. That is not politics anymore.
Exactly. The third way is dead. Third way politics is dead. You'll never get it again because it's seen a financial collapse. And I think that middle ground you're only going to find again when when you've had this, like, we're clearly entering a new political economic dynasty, shall we say? Well, like political, like generation. Like if you look at Britain in the war, we obviously had post-war consensus, which was more socialist based. Increasing social programs until about 1979 when Thatcher comes in and we've just had the winter of discontent. Then you go into the age of monetarism and neoliberalism. It's all go, 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 keep everything spinning. And obviously that then descended into crony capitalism and the austerity measures that we've had for the last 10 years. Yeah. And now, is it 10 years since credit crunch? I think it is, isn't it? 2007?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It was Lehman Brothers, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's what I call the start date anyway. But, like, this go, go, go globalism sort of stance.
Boom bust economy, kind of.
Yeah. Well, Blur promised an end to that, and look what happened.
Exactly. Anyway, I think we should move on, and I think we should talk about the recent general election. Whether May won, whether she lost, why she lost, was her campaign good, what was the flaws in her campaign. And actually, why don't we start with the comment made on the channel here. So, my Shamrock123 commenting that a family member of mine, who's always traditionally voted Labour, voted for May in 2017 because Corbyn was so left-wing scared them. So May gained some ground centre. And what I'm going to comment on that really is, one, I think a lot of people up and down the country can have personal scenarios that are obviously going to show that some people who have traditional Conservative voters switched to Labour, probably because May run one of the worst campaigns I think I've ever seen in political history.
It was terrible.
But two, it's a valid point, and I think it's hard to label someone as, she appealed to the centre. I just don't think there was a centre. I think Labour voters who were more towards what I would class as the Blairite Labour voters would have voted May, because Corbyn is such a distinct change.
Did. That was my reason.
Yeah, Corbyn is such a distinct change away from what the Labour Party has been standing for in the last 15 years. Maybe not what they've stood for throughout their history, but for new Labour, it's a massive move away from what they were founded on. And so obviously a lot of Labour voters there have gone over to May. But interestingly enough, it's Conservative voters, when there was a great split thing, and I'm not sure we've got it on here, but we should definitely try find it.
Where were we?
It's on the BBC, and they showed about voters and how they'd split and how their votes moved. The biggest movement was from Conservative voters to Labour voters, interestingly enough.
Was this 2017?
Yeah, 2017. And the reason they said why was because they said that Corbyn won the votes on Brexit. Now, how ironic is that? Because arguably Corbyn said very little on Brexit, but because he was perceived to have had what the BBC, if I remember this article, portrayed as being a sort of more Remain-friendly, soft Brexit, a lot of Conservative voters moved to Labour. also the Liberal Democrats, and I will say that the Liberal Democrats splitting their votes.
A lot of the right-wing political pundits predicted. A lot of the right-wing political pundits did predict that Theresa May would dominate this, and there was the reason why she was so far ahead in the polls. We both said Theresa May would absolutely walk this, and obviously Corbyn winning the stance on Brexit was the interesting thing about it. The only way he could play it was ambiguous because Theresa May had already cornered the Leave vote pretty much. So the only way Corbyn could be to take any of those votes, he obviously couldn't move his position towards Theresa May because when you run a populist campaign, if you suddenly swing towards the right, you lose all your votes. Simple as that. Like, well, that's the game Corbyn's playing.
What a fantastic change the election proved to be, because we were talking about this change in politics, and just an important point to note on this is, in 2010, of course, we had the coalition government. Three-party politics, the rise in Green votes, rise in UKIP votes. Politics looked like it was open to 5 parties. Last general election, in a lot of seats, UKIP didn't run a candidate. Greens didn't run a candidate to help the Labour vote or to help the Conservative vote. And I would argue the polarising of the opinions of Conservative and Labour has resulted in the other parties realising that, that Labour's moved so far to the left that Green Party voters may as well just vote for Corbyn because they almost stand on exactly the same thing. As to UKIP voters may as well vote Conservative. And those two parties realising that basically they were just going to have their votes diminished so much, decided to not run candidates in certain constituencies in order to help the candidates on the left or on the right that were close to their views, which was a real interesting change in politics again. UKIP candidates not standing. Fascinating.
Well, the other thing with that is, though, like, look at the actual change in votes from last year. Like, I think I've got them here, haven't I? I'm sure I've got them. Yeah, like, look at the actual vote change. Like, the UKIP went and lost 10% there. 10% they lost of their vote share. Like, they lost their only seat and they lost 10% of their votes. Like, that was a massive catastrophic loss for them. And same with the
Green lost 2.1%.
Yeah, like, caught Labour up 30 seats. Conservatives down 13.
Liberal Democrats lost but gained seats.
Like, the interesting thing was, though, the vast majority of those seats went to Labour in UKIP areas because they were trying to target the north, and it backfired on them because Theresa May, like, the interesting thing with the two centre parties moving out, like Labour moving further left and the Conservatives moving further right, it eliminates the far right and far left parties, as we can see here.
Okay, so I think what I want to jump in and ask now is, we're implying that, Theresa May didn't run this successful campaign. What did she do wrong? That's my question to you.
That is the question.
What did Theresa May do wrong?
And we have an article for that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's go on to it. While you say this, I'm going to get a cider. So I'm going to go get some drink because I like drink. So
Yeah, you can get me a beer. You can get me my rum if you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have an article for this. I'm getting. Chris is getting me some Chris is getting some black Carling summer fruits. I think it is. Whatever it is, black cider with black in it. Overpriced canned stuff, and I'm getting some rum and coke because I'm class. My rum's in your room.
Okay, I'll get you it.
There we go. See, he even gets rum for me. That's how good it is. But anyway, yeah, we have an article for this. So, like, this is the BBC's 10 reasons as to why May blew a majority. She did lose a majority. That's true. She went into this in double figures, and I believe the exit poll predicted a 12-point Conservative win. Out there. Oh, that's a bit too much, but it'll be alright. It's a double anyway. It's a double measure to start.
Hello, I'm back. So where are we? Well, we're talking about her losing.
Yeah, like, she did lose a majority, and ended up having to do a deal with the DUP for 10 seats to keep her in. But this is the mistake she made. Like, decided to call an election was decided to call an election. We all knew it was a big gamble coming into it.
Put it on that side.
We all knew it was a big gamble coming into it. She was 20 points ahead in the polls, and there was literally no need for her to call an election because she already had the mandate.
And she'd already said she wasn't going to do it, for like 15 times. Exactly. I'm not going to call an election. I'm not going to call an election. I'm not going to. And then she called an election.
Which is not a good idea.
So what's the first reason that this article stated then why she lost?
Well, calling the election in the first place is what she said. A constant refrain was Brexit,
actually, can I take issue with that? I don't think Theresa May was wrong to call an election. I don't.
I know,
and
and
no one would raise this point if I think the second point, which is just about to emerge there, had been different. If she'd have run a different type of campaign, no one would be saying this, and I actually think Theresa May would have a landslide right now. And I think there would be no issue. Everyone would be like, yeah, you know, it would all be fine. But I think she ran the wrong style of campaign.
Well, personally, my think is it's the Stronger Together curse again on the slogans. Like, have you noticed in the last 2 years how many people have lost on Stronger Together and, you know, Strong and Stable, as Theresa May then termed it.
She did seem like a robot. Strong and Stable.
It's just
leadership,
so corporate a statement, no one will vote for it anymore. It's sad, really.
But the problem, I think what the Conservative Party had a lot of issue was, and as this article will show, this is a type of campaign. When she went out and spoke with the public, she spoke in front of Conservative Party members. She didn't confront the public, and then of course when she did try to confront the public and showed it, you know, through media, she knocked on about 5 doors of which none of them answered, and she was stood there with Ruth Davison looking like some kind of fish out of water and just absolutely
again,
frozen.
going back to corporate style, it's all done. It was done. Like, the only way I could really term it is Americanized. Like, it was run very efficiently. It was run the same way. Like, and this is the term. The closest thing I can use is Tony Blair in 2005, like Milbank style political campaign running. Like that. That was how it was run. You know, like, when she was, like, you could see the difference in the door knocking, I think that's the biggest difference you could take. Like, I think she did a couple of door knocking sessions for the cameras, and a lot of people, it felt very sterile, it felt very frozen, like, she didn't want to be there, they didn't want her to be there. But if you look at all the Labour candidates and their helpers that went round door knocking, you could see just already it was more organic and more positive, and I think that on TV does speak volumes about who you should vote for. Like, sometimes, you know, a wink and a smile can win you a vote, and I think it worked for Labour, and, you know, it did a dividends.
Well, this quote's actually, no, can you just go up a little bit?
Sorry.
There's a really good quote here from the Times, and I agree with a lot of what's said here. If you want a presidential style campaign with a woman who doesn't like media interviews, you have to accept that it's better to do them and run the risk that they go badly than look like you're running scared from them. She didn't do hardly any. You hardly saw her in the campaign. She wasn't really on the news. You know, she wasn't really in the papers. And when she was in the papers, it tended to be negative. She didn't allow herself to be presented positive because she just didn't do enough of it. And furthermore, if you want to brag that your candidate's a bloody difficult woman, then she has to show some empathy to remind people she's human after all. She didn't. She just seemed like a stone that had one personality. And of course, what's the most dangerous, what was it? What's the most rude thing or something you've ever done? And she said, running through a field of wheat. Now, quite frankly, that was like, come on.
Oh, you bad girl.
Yeah, like, come on, you know. It seemed a bit ridiculous to me that was the most dangerous thing she'd ever done. Of course, Corbyn's response to that was rather amusing. You know, it's far too naughty to.
Well, that was the thing. Like, Corbyn played that so well.
Yeah,
like,
he did.
It was just funny. Like, he actually had humour. Like, you know, nobody's gonna turn you down for humour. It tends to win you votes, actually.
I think we're both agreed the third point is actually really important.
Corbyn actually became more memeable than Theresa May, and that is saying something. Like, Corbyn is not easily memed.
And I think the third point, in my opinion, is a big one. I would not underestimate the importance of television debates. Yeah. Lots of people do watch them. She refused to appear,
and she got Amber Rudd to stand in for her. That is a mark of a weak leader.
Did you know this
fact
fact
a weak
as well?
leader would stand on their principles and defend their ideas.
Did you know this? Did you know this point as well? Amber Rudd didn't want to be in that debate because her father had died the week before.
Oh, no, well, that's shocking.
And
like, for the sake of her vanity,
and the party made her because Theresa May was like, "I'm not appearing. I'm not appearing." So they forced her the week after her father had died to appear on national television in a debate where, quite frankly, she got ambushed by every single candidate. Because Theresa May wasn't there. And can I say, actually, one of the things I did enjoy in that, and who I thought was the best in that, Tim Farron. I thought he was very good. And
I think he was going for the old Cleggmania approach.
Yes.
Like, the Lib Dems always seem to do well in those.
And when he just turned around and he's like, Theresa May can't give you her time, so why don't you switch on Bake Off? It's on the, you know, I just loved that. He was very good. Corbyn was good, but he wasn't his best. And I felt Amber Rudd just had such a hard
personally,
time.
I don't think Corbyn is terribly good at debating when he's out of the depths of his ideological waters. That's my stance on that. Like, I think that Corbyn struggled in that, and for that reason as well. Like, he's very good when he's on his own terms and he's on his own. He's on his own firm ground.
Yeah.
But when he's not on his own firm ground, that's when he looks like he's starting to flounder. But still better than Theresa May. She didn't even show up and defend her own terms.
Yes, Queen! Quoting Michelle Visage on RuPaul's Drag Race. In relation to Theresa May, you committed the cardinal sin, you bored me.
Oh, I hope we're not boring you.
I liked the question time was really good because, of course, then we actually got to see Corbyn and May in action. Against, I hated Tim Farron in debate. Yeah, okay, Tim Farron, obviously. Like, there's a lot of... Tim Farron... Okay, I'm going to put this out there. I hate Tim Farron as a candidate because, quite frankly, he's meant to be a liberal and couldn't even say that gay sex is not a sin. Like, come on, you're not really a liberal.
Exactly. He actually comes up more Christian than the very conservative right
However,
wing.
I actually thought in the debate he was okay.
Didn't tickle me, that.
What I was going to say, the question time thing, I thought the question time thing was very interesting, and I actually thought it was really good, because what it showed was, I thought both of them didn't have a very good run on that question time show. I thought Corbyn on the nuclear weapons question was really
got
vulnerable.
On that,
he got really vulnerable, and
himself.
May got really vulnerable on the dementia tax, and it was really interesting. And I really liked that, because it showed them both as having been really vulnerable, and not just one of them was very good, and that was a really good standpoint.
I think we should get Kean on one of these debates. What do you think?
Yeah, obviously,
Kean, if you want to come on with us, feel free. I know you've been commenting quite heavily, and we're glad you're watching. Just saying, if you're ever up for it, put it in the comments. Just say, get in or something.
To be fair, like, one of the things I would say is that although TV debates highlight the fact that in politics, ever since about the 2000s, we've had a move towards personality becoming quite a lot more than policy. And although I would agree with you that Farron in that debate didn't put a lot of policy forward, I would say neither did a lot of the other candidates. And those are really a time for the public to try to connect with personality. And it doesn't help
I know we seem to be getting off topic.
You do get a little nick into policy, but a lot of it is personality. Like, you want to see Corbyn getting riled up when he talks about tuition fees.
Well, this is one thing I think that Tim Farron falls foul of as well. Like, he's a bit wooden. I do think, though, that they did come up with policy.
I completely disagree with that. Tim Farron's not wooden.
I've always felt him a bit wooden.
The way he speaks and sort of walks about, he's really energetic. The problem with the words that come out his mouth really aren't. You'd have nobody listening.
No, we've got 3 viewers. We'd have one person.
I think you'll find, Keane, when we did the collab on the Roses pool commentary, it was the most listened to commentary on the whole of Roses. So anyway, let's get back to topic. So, should we go on to this? Should we go on to manifesto policies?
Well, I was going to go with unrestricted opposition, but let's be honest, it's a point you can gloss over. May was 20 points ahead of the polls.
Oh, of course you want to gloss over Corbyn.
You're always going to underestimate Corbyn. It's pride before the fall. It's a very easy trick to fall for in the politics.
I do think she underestimated the fact that, because of course even Brexit, young voters hadn't really turned out, and that's probably one of the reasons we left.
Yeah.
But somehow in this election, Corbyn really invigorated young people into the election.
Let's go on to this now.
Process.
I think that part of this, and this does link into it, is she underestimated her opposition so badly. She wrote the worst manifesto. She got her speechwriters to write the worst manifesto ever, which told the truth of what she wanted to do. Now, let's be honest.
No Conservative manifestos normally tell the truth. That's not how they work. They go, we might raise VAT.
We may change taxes.
We may make cuts.
There's one thing I will say. I can't remember the last time a Conservative manifesto was very popular. You only remembered for posters or
Can we just laugh at Anna Soubry's
speeches
face,
or whatever?
Can we just laugh at Anna Soubry's face?
I remember when this came, we were both watching this when this came up.
Can I just say, since the country voted to leave the country, she has looked like she's been slapped in the face every morning. I'm sorry. She just looks so sad. Every morning, and the only time she speaks angrily. It's like, "Hi, I'm Anna Soubry." It's just like, it's ridiculous.
Down, you're right next to them.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm shouting because Anna Soubry normally shouts.
So sad, so sad. It's a sad, sad situation. You can tell we've both been drinking, can't you?
The EU deal gets more absurd. Anyway, turn to the policies.
Let's get on topic.
Go on. I'll let you lead on this.
Like Theresa May wrote. Like, she was the part. Yeah, she got her to be
You can tell we've been drinking because I can't speak anymore.
You've only had one rum, but it was a double, and I didn't.
Yeah, but
make it
no,
rather
I've had a
strong.
blooming 3 Carlin as well.
Here's some more rum.
Yeah,
Have
more
of that.
rum, that'll help me.
I'll talk on policies.
Yeah, you talk policy.
Okay. Obviously, one of the things that is highlighted, and it mentions it there, Theresa May's U-turn on social policies and social care was massively picked up on that brilliant interview where she stands up at the press conference. Sorry, where she stands up in loads of the press, and Laura Kunzberg goes, "Oh, Coke." Yeah, Laura Kunzberg turns around and goes, "So do you accept you made a U-turn on social policy?" And she goes, "No." And then the next person from the Guardian stands up and, "Did you make a U-turn on social policy?" "No." And then the next person, "Did you make a U-turn on social policy?" "No." I actually think what she'd have been better off doing is saying yes and explaining why she'd made the U-turn. But rather what she decided to do was try to pretend that nothing had happened. And in reality, everyone in the
not for turning, Chris.
No, but everyone in the public by that point knew she'd made a U-turn. Everyone knew. There was no doubt she'd made a U-turn. She tried to say, "I haven't made a U-turn," but it was in her manifesto. And then she was saying, "No, we're not going to implement that from the manifesto." It was just like, come on. Like, it was the most ridiculous thing. She was trying to defend the fact that, it was clearly a U-turn. And she was just trying to portray it as not doing it. And that came against her. Really came heavily against her.
It did. Well, this was the thing, she had to U-turn on dementia tax because, let's be honest, it was always going to look bad for them. No matter which way you spun that. Literally forcing you to remortgage your house to pay for your care was... Who in God's name would vote for that? Fair enough. I know I did, but I don't want to say that. I was voting on the issue. I was voting on Brexit. I was voting for a million other things, and they thought that their stance on Brexit would be enough for them to put anything through on a manifesto, including, as well, controls over the internet and censorship. No. It went against every bone in my body to vote Conservative, when that manifesto came out. I really...
She tried hard.
It was so difficult to justify voting for it. It was so difficult.
But what didn't she commit the
and I'm
cardinal
so glad.
sin?
I remember thinking when that manifesto came out, I still have to vote. I don't want us leaving the EU to be messed up, and I have no confidence in any of the party members, and it's the biggest issue facing
to be
me.
fair, I'm going to take the quote from earlier.
I did it, and I hoped to God we got a hung parliament. Sure enough,
I'm going to take that quote from earlier and slightly change it. You committed the cardinal sin which is you bore to them. That is not the cardinal sin in politics. The cardinal sin is to go against your core vote.
It is.
And that's exactly what she did. Everyone who knows anything about politics knows Corbyn's core vote is youth. Her core vote, and this is why I want to... Obviously, this is why it comes relevant. Can I just make this point? It's relevant because her core vote is the elder generation. And she wanted to stop the triple lock, which meant that, which protects winter fuel allowance, protects etc.
It protects a lot of things.
Yeah, also guarantees 2.5, as it says there, 2.5 increase in your state pension. And she wanted to get rid of that. That's your core vote you are trying to cut.
But if you agree that's true, that the cardinal sin is going against your core vote, Corbyn voting saying we're going to leave the single market when his vote's the youth and most of them vote to remain. Just thought I'd mention that from the last video, Chris.
However, may I make this point? You're saying he's going against his core vote, but I'm just going to put out the point that the Labour Party membership isn't the core vote of the Labour Party.
Yeah, but you said the youth was his main core vote, so you've done goof there, haven't you?
Okay, I have done my goof, but I'm young and I'm a Corbyn voter and I like Brexit, so he clearly does a lot for me. He clearly does a lot for me.
You, but it's not perfect for many.
No, it isn't. I do think, though, a lot of young people are coming more round to the idea that leaving the European Union is a good idea. I would argue that, this is going to sound quite extreme for a lot of my friends that are tuning in, not my close friends. Some people did not research that debate enough. If your excuse for voting Remain was the fact that you like Europe, I'm sorry, you didn't do enough research. I am getting shady. These are big political decisions and it requires more than just, Europe's a big place and I like being part of it.
I voted for Remain on that basis. I was very I didn't think about the Leave's arguments enough, and I really do. That's the reason why I've changed my mind so much on the subject now.
Let's stop getting back to Brexit, because
Yeah, we
you
need to
know
carry on,
I
we
love
need to carry on.
Brexit, and I will talk
We need
about
to carry
Brexit
on.
forever.
Like,
So just let's go on the few final reasons.
surge.
Yeah.
Like, personally, I don't think that's a reason, because I think May, as we've seen in the speech before, we know that May had something of a thing for the Labour surge. We know that she had some... when my brain works. We know that she knew that Corbyn was rising up the ranks quite quickly, and we knew that she was gaining votes. That he was gaining votes, sorry. As you can see by her speech and the way when she came in, and the way that she was, she like moved her party over to the left to get the centre ground again. I think she did react to it, but then as soon as she saw that she was 20 points ahead in the polls, she just swung straight back to the right again because she thought she could and she wouldn't lose that many votes. Unfortunately, it did backfire on her.
It was interesting because...
But I think she knew of the dangers, I think.
Yeah, when it mentions the Labour surge, what I'd also say is that Labour surge, and one of the reasons not reacting to it, I would say, is an important factor, is because when it comes to an election, the side that tends to do best is the side that can dictate what is the main points of discussion. Labour, by fact, is strong on NHS, social issues, and they dominated the campaign for a long time. And that left Theresa May very exposed, and you didn't see her often. She wanted to discuss about leadership, Brexit, and security. They were her issues. They were her bread and butter. Arguably after the terror incident, of course, which, you know... the terror incidents allowed her to bring the discussion back to security. But before that...
Yeah, but she only used it as an excuse, though, to increase internet censorship, which I do not agree with, and it will not solve anything.
Yes, agree. She lost track of dictating what the discussion had been about, and it was only after that she managed to regain control, and by then, unfortunately, it was too late. Interesting point here.
I think
we've touched on this.
Glossed on this.
And it's a film to both our favourite persons. Why don't we just have a quick... I think we do need to do a video on the US election. I really do think we do.
In fact, I want to we could discuss my dissertation because I wrote it.
I would just like to say, as someone on the left as well, I find Hillary Clinton one of the most despicable, horrible candidates that we've ever put forward for an election, as was Donald Trump, but she was pretty bad.
Yeah, but
there we go.
You can't stump the Trump.
Oh, don't start calling him daddy like mine.
Oh, no.
Dear.
Oh, God, no.
Oh, dear. Right, anyway, what's the next one? We've discussed about her personality.
We've discussed the youth votes.
Yes.
I think that's a nothing burger. I think that's a nothing
I'll just say personally. On the not so the fox hunting, but the same old Tories. And I was discussing to one of my close friends. I hope she doesn't mind me mentioning her name. Imogen, good friend of mine. She also lives in Hexby. She's marvellous. And we were both discussing this, and for a lot of time, when you, as a Labour voter, if you discuss, you know, the Tories make all these cuts, no one tended to believe you, and the discussion went elsewhere. As this election, I felt a lot more people were going, but the Tories keep doing this and this, and more people were starting to get this vibe of the Tories always are the ones making cuts, always trying to get rid of your child benefits, always trying to, and that message was really getting through. People were starting to see that actually the Tories are the party that do this, whether that's right or wrong.
They're still the nasty party,
you know. Yes,
and they always will. And I do kind of get that, but I think the way that the whole fox hunting situation played out in the media and the way that both parties covered it. It was a big nothing. I felt like my stance was Labour went fully out against fox hunting. I was like, this is the hill you choose to die on. You have a million other issues to think about, and this is the one you're choosing to champion against the Tories.
Yeah,
like you've got 20 other things you got to think about: Brexit, securities for pensions, dementia tax, and this was the big thing that was in the media for a while.
And this is what I mean, like, it relates to the last point which I just mentioned about Labour dictating the narrative throughout a lot of the campaign. Fox hunting, if you ask any I would call centre or conservative voter, is not a big issue.
Exactly, like, but the first thing I was thinking was, I don't care.
Yes, exactly.
But I do not care.
But a lot of people on the left, do care, and because they were able to dictate the narrative, somehow, fox hunting became a big figure in the campaign.
I know, but I thought it was bloody stupid.
I don't think it was stupid. I do think that Theresa May wanting fox hunting is a bad idea and is not good. But I don't think it's that. Yeah, but it's not as big an issue as it got made out to be, and that's because Labour dictated the narrative.
Daft, because as far as I'm concerned, the only thing Labour cared about then is,
the sweet little foxes, not about, you know, how much money I'm getting in my pocket, or will I have a job at the end of the month.
That's
you
the
know,
poor. Come on.
I know, but
you can make a big campaign about something. It doesn't mean it's your sole purpose.
I know, but I think it's
not everyone's UKIP.
I know, but I think it's a point to be made that they shouldn't have gone after this as hard as they did, and it just became. I just found it a little bit ridiculous, and I thought it's such a big nothing policy. It doesn't really matter, because I don't care what the rich do. I don't care if they want to shoot foxes or they don't. I don't care. I mean, fair enough. It's cruel.
What would have been more productive and probably more impacting would have been her fact that she doesn't. She's pretty much, not very good.
Should the people who are running the country have as much care about this as, say, me worrying about how high my energy bills are going to be?
Yeah, and I'm agreeing with your point that it's not in terms of priority the biggest thing, but I don't think we just dismiss the fact, like I said, the left were controlling the narrative of the election. That was true, and fox hunting is an issue on the left. It's not because obviously fox hunting is banned, but the fact that someone who's running to be prime minister of this country thinks it should be reintroduced, which in my opinion is a pretty radical point, because I think most rational people are against fox hunting. It is an interesting point to put. And also remember, like I said earlier as well, politics has become a lot about personalities and about individuals. The people who are running the parties.
I suppose you could argue it's symbolic.
And yes,
it's symbolic, isn't it? And I can see why they made it a big issue. But personally, from my point of view, I like cold hard facts. I like cold hard policies. I don't care about symbols. That's personally where I come from. But I think that's where me and you differ on politics. That's partly where we differ.
Can I just say number 10? I've pretty much nailed that point already.
Yeah, we've done that anyway,
I said about, the left dictating the narrative, and then the events of the Manchester terror attacks and London changed the course and let her take control. But interestingly, I would say, I heard someone who was on the right of politics, now I can't remember who, and I'm sorry if you're watching this video, I couldn't remember it was you, said to me, actually, they came out and they were a big anti-Corbyn, and were eventually going to vote Corbyn because they heard his speech on security after the attacks and actually thought that was a really good speech. And Labour did use, like it says there, they talked a lot about police cuts, etc., to try to show the Conservatives not really following through on this idea of security, and that was quite effective in the campaign. It was effective.
I agree. I think Corbyn did make some ground on terror, but I think he's undone it at the same time with some of the things he said. Like his stance on Venezuela, for one. I mean, fair enough, he has finally condemned the violence, we can now say, in this stream, since he's come back off his holidays. But he, again, why does he have to condemn all violence? Like, surely people that are trying to overthrow the regime have the, a regime that isn't speaking to them democratically, they have some rights on that to create violence to overthrow that regime that is physically oppressing them through not letting them vote fairly and making them starve. Like, why Corbyn has condemned both sides is quite frankly wrong. I don't think that that's the right case.
I would say as well, like, I think
so this is
Theresa May
I'm just saying it as an example.
Yeah, Theresa May having a strong
that
position
Corbyn
on
does shoot himself in
security
the foot over a lot of these issues.
We all know the narrative that's dictated, and the narrative that I don't dispute too much, and I do think one of the things we have to bear in mind, and hopefully we are going to talk about Douglas Murray in a future video, and one of the things that she's nailed in terms of security, I would argue, and what arguably Trump nailed as well, is radical Islam and the problems that are associated with that. And she is strong. And Cameron, towards the end of his tenure, was very strong on it as well, and started saying, we have to call it radical Islamic terrorism, because
you
that's what it is.
can't call it anything else.
That's what it is.
Let's stop pussyfooting about it.
Yes, and I think Labour will have an issue identifying that problem. Interesting, this is going to be a bit off tangent, and you can bring us back to the next topic and introduce that, which is obviously going to be... But anyway...
we'll be introducing that in a minute, I think.
One of the interesting things, which epitomised how the left has this, in my opinion, wrong, is after the Orlando attacks and Owen Jones walking out of that... of the interview, because he is someone who's campaigned, as the left does, say this is nothing Islamic, and then of course it attacked and destroyed and killed a lot of the LGBT community, the biggest attack that had been on it, and he couldn't accept the fact that this was a problem, and this guy, his religious views were heavily involved in why he disbelieved in the things that he did, and couldn't find himself coming to terms with the fact that that had actually happened.
I know, but this is the thing that when they say that it has nothing to do with Islam, like when it comes to LGBT and stuff like that, if you actually look at their opinions on homosexuality, three quarters of them believe it's abhorrent. Like, literally, that's
a poll of 17 to 24-year-old Muslims aged 17 to 24-year-olds in London found that 80% of them thinks that homosexuality should be made illegal.
Correct.
Illegal.
And it's pretty similar, the figures worldwide as well. Like, if that's nothing to do with Islam, then please tell me how many radicals there are. Is it 80% of them?
Yeah,
I find
like,
that
obviously,
very unlikely.
So we're going to move on to that. I think we better move on before we get into this. But
this is
what
this
we will
is a
say for
topic
you, if
very
you're
much for
interested,
another
if you're
time.
interested in that topic, I've recently purchased Douglas Murray's a new book, which I'm about.
And I will be purchasing
about
it
an eighth
soon.
of the way through. I recommend you get it. It's written absolutely fantastic, called The Strange Death of Europe. It's a bestseller in the UK. About £12 on Amazon. I recommend you buy it. It's a fantastic book, really well written, and we're hoping to do a book review of it because
We will be, yes.
because it's fantastic. Yes, and one of the things I'll give you a quick flavour of the book, just a quick line, and he argues that the European people have created a utopia, but in the Greek sense of the word, that it is now no place. And I love that line.
That's a
So really
very
interesting,
quote.
and that will be a very good
Indeed.
discussion.
Not
so,
in terms of Thomas More's
no,
Utopia. I
exactly,
almost
yes,
assume.
yes. So anyway, let's move
I
on to the
suppose
next
we
part
should
of this
move
discussion.
over to the race, I guess.
Yes, the race.
leadership race. I know we've missed a few topics out there, as you can, as eagle-eyed viewers can probably tell from the search bar up at the top.
We haven't even
but we
discussed
have
about
them
the
in
DUP.
we have those in the description, so you're fine there.
We haven't discussed about her signing a deal with the DUP because, there's no money tree, but there is when you want to deal with the DUP.
Well, I suppose that's a point that we can probably, I think it's wrong. Like,
Why don't we
can't
just
defend
summarise
it.
the DUP? They're a homophobic, racist party.
Go straight for the identity politics, though.
I
Chris.
am going for identity politics, but unfortunately in this scenario it happens to be true. And
I think you might be right.
and the fact that she signed a deal with this, I would rather have led a minority government than her signed a deal with the DUP.
No, but literally, I commented this as a meme on the
come
on the Guardian's Facebook page when they said that they signed the deal, and I was just there like, Corbyn voters, congratulations, you played yourself when you don't want the most right-wing government in decades to get in, and then you make it happen.
Yeah, I think that's a nice summary. I think we're both pretty much agreed.
It's
that
cruelty,
The
but
Tories
it's
shouldn't have gone
funny.
with the DUP. Like,
It's cruelly funny, but that's life, isn't it? Anyway, I do agree though that the DUP are definitely anti-homosexual, anti-gay rights and stuff like that.
well, obviously the leader.
They're
Just,
very, very
the leader just this week,
backwards.
if you actually seen the news, has condemned people who were for same-sex marriages as being outrageous.
But
And it's just
they'll
like,
never
come on.
overturn it. Like, this was the thing. Like, I think it's wrong that she's gone into bed with them. But
She's gone into bed.
you can see
That'd be
the
ironic
play
because
there.
both leaders are female, so that'd make her a lesbian.
Oh
Something
my.
that she
Yeah,
doesn't
but
like anyway.
But the
New on Pornhub.
it's one of those things though that they'll never overturn.
No.
They'll never ever put enough pressure to overturn it. Like, gay marriage is here to stay, and I think that a lot of people are afraid that it is going to go. But I wouldn't be afraid. I don't think it ever will go now that it's
Put on
been
the
made
odds.
to happen.
So,
I'm confident.
so I think the
in that.
next discussion we're going to move on to is, obviously in light of this and the poor campaign she's run, there's been discussions of who's going to replace Theresa May. Is there going to be a next leader? Probably the likelihood is it will happen after Brexit's gone through. And why don't we have a look at the odds? Why don't we just have a quick look at the odds, and then we can move back to this article. I think the odds are the best thing to look at here because they've changed.
We can look at
It's
what's
changed a
going
lot
on.
from here, hasn't it?
But I just want to draw your attention to this.
Hero Navy surgeon apologises for unsanctioned operation on 12-year-old boy's genitals.
Okay. I just.
If you're interested in that article, check it out on
noticing
the
a
Telegraph.
few things on the articles now on the sidebar, on a few of these news articles that we are picking up. So if you see any funny ones, please send them to us. We've also got woman shot in vagina in sex game gone wrong, which I think's funny. Obviously, as you can tell, we've been drinking.
Hello,
That's why
Holly
we're
Guardian.
finding
If
this
you
funny.
like, if you're watching this, we need to meet up and do something soon. But you're awesome. I love you.
Anyway, let's
And
continue.
no,
Let's get
let's
back
go
on
to the odds.
topic.
Let's go to the odds because they've changed a lot from here.
Well, we have, yes. But
Because
I
this
think,
implies that Boris Johnson's
think
a favourite
though-
and he's not.
Just to clarify, this is taken
from the 9th of June 2017. So this is immediately after the election has happened, and Theresa May has gone very wrong.
Obviously, everyone
We have the
knows
current
Boris.
odds on another page, but I think it's important that we go on about who the initial front runners were after
Yeah.
June the 8th.
Yeah.
I think it's very important that we do that. And obviously we can see straight off Boris Johnson at 2-1. And I think that's a very interesting point to be made,
considering he got stabbed in the back by Gove last time and was probably due to be leader of the Conservatives last time as well.
Yeah, I think he's such a... When I've been talking about politics, it's become such about charisma and personality. This is someone who arguably is the most dumb, or not dumb actually. He's actually rather intelligent. Watch the debate which he has about whether ancient Greece or Rome is better. You just can watch that and be like, wow, this guy's actually intelligent, has a brain. But in terms of politics, he says some of the most outlandish things you've ever heard. For example, as Mayor of London, after the velodrome got built for the London Olympics, he said it would create jobs for the community because, quote, they'd rubbed it with rhubarb. Now, he's not exactly the brightest man you've ever met. However, he does have a lot of charisma, and he's that exact opposite to Theresa May, and that's probably why he was just instant favourite.
Like, honestly, why, like, considering Corbyn is a populist, and like, obviously we're going to go into Moggmentum later, and about the populist rise of Jacob Rees-Mogg that we are seeing.
Jacob Rees-Mogg.
But look at, all I'm going to say is, to use the classic Jim Bowen catchphrase from Bullseye, look at what you could have won. Like, that is the perfect candidate for you. You would literally buy into everything you're saying and just run with it.
I don't know about you, but I had people in the Leave camp, in the Brexit debate, turn to me and went, I'm voting with Boris. I'm voting with Boris. It was like, there was no, you didn't need to look at policies. I'm voting with Boris. Whatever Boris says, I vote with that guy. Like, yeah. That's how much people like this guy. I know. This is rather good. We've got a lot of viewers. 7 people watching! It's a miracle.
It's a world record.
Okay, right, let's keep talking. So we've been talking about Boris. Philip... Oh, dear.
And then we've got Philip Hammond at 7-1, which I think is a little bit generous for Philip Hammond. Like, I don't think he'll ever be...
Philip Hammond has as much charisma as my grandma, and she's dead.
He has as much charisma as a damp rag. And I do agree with Mr. Farage.
No, Theresa May has as much charisma as a damp rag. Philip Hammond has as much charisma as my grandma, and she's dead.
Well, a wet flannel.
He has none. He has absolutely none.
Like, the only thing I can really say about Philip Hammond is, who are you? I don't know who you are. You don't know. I'm just going to do Farage quotes now. I don't
doing Farage. No, obviously
I'm channeling my inner hero here.
He's very experienced, and he sort of comes with May. It was very expected he would get May hands for the Exchequer. He was a very centrist kind of view,
and you've got Amber
supporting
Rudd,
Remain.
Amber Rudd as well with no odds. To be honest, I don't see why she wouldn't be a good pick.
No, but the reason I wouldn't fancy Amber Rudd is because she just smells of May. Another woman on the rise, Home Secretary, like Stop and Search. Like, you know, it's just like, come on, you just smell of May. And
exactly.
Like you said, you never want the same person.
Crab, yes.
Yeah, never want the same person. But she does have a lot of experience, and I think she's one to look out for. She's on for something
And then
big.
you've got David
and now
Davis,
the current
who obviously is now the current favourite. But we'll be getting onto that later, because we're going to show you the actual odds that we have with us today.
Why don't we go on to those now, and let's just talk about
we will.
them.
I just want to keep scrolling down, see if there's anybody we've missed. Yep, that
Sajid
is...
Javid and Michael Gove.
Sajid Javid and Michael Gove. But then this is the interesting thing, and this is the reason why we're talking so much about Moggmentum. We're going to be talking about Moggmentum today, is because look at this. Jacob Rees-Mogg has come from absolutely nowhere, and he is right up with the front runners.
David Davis, look at that, way ahead in the polls.
David Davis, way ahead though, 21-5. He's come from absolutely nowhere with no odds on that independent article immediately after. Boris Johnson's stayed his hand. He's done very, very well there. Philip Hammond has improved his results. But Jacob Rees-Mogg, he's come from absolutely nowhere. He's even beating Amber Rudd, who was also in that article, and they've come from absolutely nowhere. Like, what has created this massive rise for Jacob Rees-Mogg? And people are noticing it. Like, on Daily Politics, they even did a little segment on Jacob Rees-Mogg at the end a couple of weeks ago, I think. And, like, where has this come from? It can't just be from the memes that I've been looking at on YouTube, because believe me, I've been absorbing the Mogg memes for a while. But it's come from nowhere.
Just a quick comment, like
why.
On the live chat, I'd agree with a lot of what's getting said on the live chat about Boris having an immense crossover appeal and the sound bites and Boris Boris being very popular, and I agree with a lot of what's being said there. One of the things I'd like to pick up on these odds.
It does stand out, doesn't it?
One of the things I'd like to pick up on these odds is yes, obviously Jacob Rees-Mogg Ruth Davidson as a candidate. Now, I did say I would talk about her a little bit.
Yeah, Ruth Davidson is the other one, I suppose.
She's a bit too. From the next leader, I'd like to see someone who's a bit more Brexiteer, and she's very much Remain. However, she speaks with such authority when she speaks, and I really think she's a future leader.
She sticks it to Sturgeon in Scottish Parliament. But I will say this though, and this is the reason why I don't think she'll be leader. Theresa May did say stay in Scotland. That was the one thing she did say to her, and she didn't challenge it at all.
Yeah.
I think she might be the next Scottish Parliament leader, perhaps, but I don't think she'll be the next leader of the Conservatives. I really don't. But I could be proven wrong. Like, Jacob Rees-Mogg has come from nowhere.
Jacob Rees-Mogg has come from nowhere, but one of the things I will say with caution is that, obviously, you know, oh my god, Jacob Rees-Mogg is doing really well, you know. He might win the leadership contest. But what I'd like to mention is, again, the problem that the Brexiteers had in the last campaign is they split their vote. David Davis, Brexiteer. Boris Johnson, Brexiteer. Jacob Rees-Mogg, Brexiteer. Michael Gove, Brexiteer. And Ledson, Brexiteer. These are all Brexiteers. They have to unite around one candidate, and they have to agree on who that is. Now, obviously, from the last campaign, people thought Boris's team wasn't very good, and that might not be Boris. I'm not sure it's Jacob Rees-Mogg. But anyway, we're going to go on to Moggmentum, aren't we? And I'm going to let you take the lead on this because you're obsessed.
Let's see, because they look at the momentum that he is gaining. Like, he's doing very well. A lot of people are taking, like, you know, when the mainstream media is starting to pick up that Jacob Rees-Mogg could potentially be a candidate.
Stop clicking your pen. She smells of me. Bit sexist, Chris. She smells of me because she's a woman.
What did I say that for?
No, it wasn't necessarily that. It was also the fact that she's running Home Secretary. She's rising through the party like me. It's not the fact that she's just a woman. It's the fact that she's doing the exact same route up.
Who was that from?
One of my friends, Holly, and she was saying thanks.
Sorry,
for
a
the
little
shout-out.
message.
So yeah. But no, anyway, Moggmentum, which is currently on the rise, lots of memes, and of course, king of memes, Chris Fairhurst, has a lot to say on Moggmentum.
Some call me the meme lord.
Oh, here he comes with his long word. I just love this. I love this.
I still can't read this. I'm too drunk to say it. I can't.
Let's have a go. Flockinalkinihilipification. He can say it. You can play it on the stream. Maybe you'll say it. Maybe you say it.
Yeah, but it'll echo back through the mic, obviously.
No, we don't want
This is the problem with having headphones.
Well, neither of us can say it anyway. But anyway,
Actually,
keep going.
We've got headphones in. What the hell am I saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Let's
play
try
it. Let's
it,
play
okay.
it. Let's let Mogg say the longest word.
Go on, Mog.
And I'm glad to say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the requirement not to be rude about judges only applies to judges in this country. It does not apply to judges in the European Union. So let me, Mr. Deputy Speaker, be rude about them. Let me indulge in the floxy-knocking-nihilipilification of judges of the European Union.
Yes! Foxy not keep nilipification.
It just sounds like Foxy boxing to me. I don't know.
It's just, yes. Like, Jacob Rees, I didn't know until Fairhurst said he wanted to have a discussion on Moggmentum that this had become a thing. But can
really
I say, he
like,
is such a charismatic person, and I do find him hilarious.
He is popular, and it's just a few of the things he does. Like there's a lot of meme pages out there for Mog. Like, there's middle class memes for Rees-Moggian teens. There's quite a few. There's the Church of Mog that's now become the Mosque of Mog that will soon become the Cinemog if I get my way.
Cinemog.
But there's quite a few out there, and I think that's where all this has started from. Also, there's a channel on YouTube called Master Brew that's been doing quite a few good little memes of Mog. With the grandstand theme.
Jacob Rees-Mogg has always been, to my knowledge, since I've always been interested in politics, a very divisive politician. He's
the most Tory going. Like honestly, the ultimate way for them, I'd say, to combat the rise of Mog is literally just to take. You remember Harry Enfield and Chum's Tory boy?
Did you just say Jacob Rees-Mogg is one of the most Tories going? I would disagree with that.
Oh, get out! You think stereotypical Tory, and you see this with the background as well of
no.
150 grand a year.
The culture of it, but yes, as a personality, he doesn't.
No, but
at all.
You look at that picture, right? And now I'm going to look this up for you, and you tell me they don't look very similar.
Come on. No, obviously I'm not trying to say that he's not. He has certain qualities that are very classic Tory, but he's just. his personality, his charisma, his way of speaking
Right, so
is
you're
nothing like
seriously
Tory.
telling me that Jacob Rees-Mogg is just not a more well-rounded version of this? Come on, like, the hair's the same, the glasses are the same, everything is the same. Like, literally, you couldn't have a more stereotypical Tory from Image if you tried. It's literally like looking at spitting Image. Like, I'll go back again. There's Mogg.
Yeah.
And there's Tory Boy from Harry
Okay,
Enfield
it's
and
pretty
Sons.
close.
It's pretty close. Telling me it's pretty close.
I would say that there's some of the things that I would say, and I'd just like to point out.
I think that's why he does so well.
Just before
though.
you go, obviously, into the detail of Jacob Rees-Mogg and why this has become such a thing, and obviously on the memes, on some of his actual opinions, there's a lot that some people on the left would actually agree with. For example, Jacob Rees-Mogg is a huge advocate against he was a huge advocate against the pay increase that the MPs got. He doesn't claim anything like on expenses.
He doesn't, you're right.
He's absolutely fantastic in that kind of position. Also, people on the left, who are true socialists, as I say, should support Brexit, and he does.
He's
I'm
very,
not calling
very
him a
passionate
socialist,
about Brexit.
but he is very passionate about Brexit, supports it, and anyone who's a true socialist should also be passionate about.
Yeah, but I wouldn't
asking
call
for-
Jacob Rees-Mogg a true
If you asked a child to
socialist.
draw a Tory, they would draw Jacob Rees-Mogg. It's probably true. I accept he is definitely a.
Well,
I was wrong. He is definitely a definitive Tory. He is really.
He is. You can't you can't call him anything else. Like, he even
But
lies
he's a
down.
funny
in the House of
Tory.
Commons. Oh, he's really yeah. That's part of his appeal. I think it's the fact he's so close to parody. It's funny. It just works.
Yeah, it's true. Kia's
I love
right.
that. The story of his sixth son being born and named Sixtus.
The Guardian called him a Tory sex machine. It just sounds like
The porno.
yeah, it does. It sounds like a porn film. But look, like, he's clearly doing well because, like, look, his Instagram's got 32,000 views, and he did that. Was it with who's the Labour woman?
Oh, I know the exact video you're on about now.
I know you like.
Oh, she's really stuck up. I don't
know
like her.
she's a nightmare, isn't she?
I hate her. See,
She's
I
like
don't
the
like
more SJW side of Labour, and I can't think. She got in a bit of a spat with
Oh, and her-
Sargon of Akkad, actually.
And
I
her
think.
laugh sounds like she's a fisherman's wife. Oh no.
What's
oh
her
dear.
name? What's her name?
It'll be quite. Oh, it's her loony feminist from Labour. This is her.
Yeah, this is it. Jess Phillips. There we go. Jess Phillips. I got it. No, it's there.
Yeah.
Jess Phillips.
Oh,
But yeah,
dear.
like, so he's clearly doing something right.
He is. I also like the funny pictures you see sometimes of him, like when he's on his campaign and his little son's out with him, and his son is just identical in like
I know, they're
change,
so similar.
in dress and everything. And his son looks like he's 7 and he's telling people to vote Conservative. I just love it. Like it's quite
And
amusing.
he goes around in the old Bentley as well. Like, and I think the fact that he's so stereotypically Tory, it works on a psychological level. Like, they could spin it like Sir Alec Douglas Hume from '64.
Yeah.
They could spin it exactly like that, but I think they'll struggle now because I think
the right wing have like the people that want Mogg in
Taking my pen.
have taken the sting out of the tail, as it were,
Yeah.
and made it a case.
More rum.
Oh yes, please. They've took the sting out of that and made it a case where he is the most Tory going, but what are you going to do about it? Look at who you're voting for, the most Marxist going.
Yeah, like
you know what I
I
mean?
forgot
It's
about
quite
the
interesting, isn't
the
it?
question time which he was on, which was really funny when David Dimbley talks about Eton and stuff, and it's just hilarious. Like it's so good, and he is just like you said, the quintessential Tory. Right, do you want to talk a bit more about Moggmentum and the trend?
See, look, it celebrates Meese Rog with memes and gifs.
Yes, and that's true. Miller
And it is-
fandom.
and
Miller
it's
fandom.
the Miller Babes. Well, Miliband did do well with that.
Yeah, but he lost the election, didn't he? It wasn't enough, and that's one of the
Well,
things.
that's a good one.
That's one of the things I think we've got to be realistic when we talk about Mogg. Like, Mogg is very popular. He has a big fandom that
And
is
he's doing
obviously
well
attached
with
to
the youth
Moggmentum.
as well, which is something the Tories don't have in spades at the
But
moment.
32,000 people does not win you a general election, and certainly doesn't even win you a Tory party leadership race. And people who think that he's going to become the next leader of the Conservative Party, I think, are very misled. I don't think he would even want to become leader of the Conservative Party. I think he's even said he wouldn't want that himself.
Yeah, I don't
So-
think he's mad keen on it, but I think he's going to end up with it.
I don't. He's not got enough pub. If you put before the voters Jacob Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson,
Well, this is where I beg to differ on the issue. Tories have lost the youth vote. 2/3 of young people, more than 2/3 in fact, voted, like 18 to 24, voted for Labour, and it was what lost them 30. It was what gained Labour 30 seats and cost the Conservatives 30 in the last election. Jacob Rees-Mogg is the one candidate that they could possibly run that might gain some of that back.
I disagree.
I seriously think that, because like the amount of people that look at memes, the amount of people that spend time on Facebook and Twitter, they're gonna go for somebody that already has that, you know, sort of social media wow factor straight away.
Can I make a real?
And I think you're going to struggle to get it with any other candidates.
I agree with you, but I'm going to
apart from maybe Boris.
I'm going to make an important distinction that I think is really relevant to this debate. So, Jacob Rees-Mogg is obviously, and Moggmentum is a popular movement that's grown amongst the youth, and obviously in the last election the youth went up against Conservative and voted for Corbyn. But we've got to look at what the relevance is about how Mogg's been presented. Are people laughing with Mogg or at Mogg? And especially when, just let me finish, when Corbyn was presented to the youth, he stood on a campaign that bettered a lot of things for the youth, that made them think positively. Tuition fees getting rid of, investing in future education, creating more jobs. That is what the youth got behind, and the youth were really enticed by that. But let me finish. When the youth are talking about Mogg, they're almost sort of laughing at his kind of style. Is that electable? Is 32,000... Corbyn, if you put a meme on, is going to get more than 32,000 people looking at it. Let's be
probably
realistic.
True. But
Jacob Rees-Mogg, when he speaks, although he speaks with passion and very well, is not a Corbyn figure. He is not someone who I think,
well, that's where
against you, will appeal a lot to the youth. And just by fact as well, I'd like to make this point. That is this. I think that if Mogg was leader of the Conservative Party, the youth just wouldn't swing back to the Conservatives. The youth are going to be for Corbyn, and why is that? Because the youth are fundamentally stuck to the left.
More left wing naturally. Yeah, I agree with that. But
I do think
yes,
though,
Holly Guardian.
to the disenfranchised voter, the disenfranchised Labour Corbyn voter, like, you're gonna look for, like, you know, all I'll say is, from what I've seen of this rise of Mogg and where it's come from and how it's happened, I just keep getting this feeling that it's just Trump all over again. Like, everybody underrated Trump. Everybody thought it was all just
completely
laughing at
disagree.
Trump. And look at what happened.
We're going to have a debate about it, and there's so many reasons why Trump got elected, and one of them is certainly...
I know, and I wrote a lot of them down in my dissertation,
okay, cool,
but media manipulation was my biggest theme.
Yeah, I don't think that this is the same as what's happening with Mogg, and I actually think what has happened to a lot of youth voters, they've not had... Theresa May has no character, we've both agreed on this. Boris Johnson is just weird, and the youth don't really get behind him, although do make memes about him and do laugh at him.
Oh no,
and this
does do well out of it.
This is just
doesn't
another
do as well as
opportunity for young people to take the mick out of politicians. However, I'm going to make this point. There is some validity to the fact that young people are going to be enticed by Jacob Rees-Mogg. However, they are a minority, in my opinion, and actually have been appealing for this kind of figure. Because what young people have lacked is a true Tory, a true person who stands up Conservative values. I read a book, which is also by Douglas Murray, Neo-Conservatism and Why We Need It, and the fact that what happens and what the Conservative Party needs is a return to Conservative values. Now, I don't agree with Conservative values. I think I made this point clear, but that's what they need, and that's what...
Here,
just give me a minute. That's what Jacob Rees-Mogg represents.
And I know I said I don't put much stock in symbolism, but look at everything he keeps saying, everything he keeps wanting to do. He's not just a symbol. He's literally it. You can't describe him as anything else.
However, may I also make the point... One of the things we discussed earlier was the way Conservative Party elects people as their leader. Now, to elect someone as a Conservative Party leader, you have to be a Conservative Party member. Now, amongst his membership, maybe he might do very well. I also actually don't think he would, because I don't think the majority of the Conservative Party members... Sorry, I'm just obsessed with Labour. Majority of Conservative Party members are young. I'd make the point that the Conservative Party way it works on leadership is about the MPs voting for a candidate. There is no way, realistically, that MPs are going to vote for Mogg to be a candidate as the final two. Now, if it was in a Labour leadership, all he'd need is a certain amount of nominations and he gets put to a debate. But that's not how it works. He needs to be the top two candidates. And when you've got David Davis, Boris Johnson, Amber Rudd, Philip Hammond, Ruth Davidson, Michael Gove and Andrea Leadsom, all possible alternatives, Jacob Rees-Mogg enters none of those calculations as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I completely beg to differ. I think Corbyn, if Corbyn is the the memeable figure from the left, and obviously he's taking Labour more left wing, then why shouldn't the Tories do exactly the same thing but in the opposite way? It just makes a load of sense from this perspective. If you're gonna fight a populist war against a populist candidate, you need a populist yourself, and I think that Jacob Rees-Mogg is the perfect figure for it, if not Boris Johnson.
32,000 people is not a populist movement.
Yeah, I know, but look at Corbyn before he got elected party leader. He was nowhere. And I remember his rise to power. And I can see Jacob Rees-Mogg happening in a very similar way.
But this is the difference.
Tories.
Corbyn was nowhere, scraped his way onto the campaign, and then was allowed to speak in front of lots of people.
Yeah, but it was the same with Jacob Rees-Mogg.
No,
No,
this is what I'm saying about the systems.
Look,
okay?
I was going to say that he's come from absolutely nothing. He's not even mentioned in this Telegraph article from the immediate aftermath of the election. And now look, he's literally... he's not quite favourite, but he's like second favourite to take the leadership.
He's 71 to be favourite to the leadership because the members might think he'd be a good idea. The MPs certainly don't.
I wouldn't be... No, honestly, I would be very, very surprised if they don't go for him. Like, personally, I go for
really think Jacob Rees-Mogg has a chance of winning the Conservative leadership?
I have a reason for this. I personally go for Dawes from Dawes... DAWES. Dawes' rational party thesis that the goal of parties is to win votes. That is their primary goal, and to be elected. It's not about ideology. It's nothing to do with that. It's about what wins you votes. And if people are saying that they'd vote for Mogg over, say, Boris or whoever, based on the odds,
how many?
They are going to say, you know what? Let's back Mogg. Let's give them a chance.
How many people?
Put it this way. The Conservative Party has made ridiculous decisions when it comes to that before. Like, they went for Alec Douglas Hume in 1964 against Wilson. It was a really bad idea. But in this case, it could not... I don't think it's going to be a repeat of history. I think it's going to be very, very different.
I think you're completely wrong. I think the reality of the situation that we have to face up to is that Jacob Rees-Mogg, one, does not want to run for Tory leadership. Let's put that out there.
That's very, very true.
Two, I don't think he would win if he ran in the Tory leadership because of the system that's in place, because MPs wouldn't vote for him. Three, I'd like to say you're way over-exaggerating the popularity that Jacob Rees-Mogg has with the wider electorate. This is what people did with... This is what people underestimated with Jeremy Corbyn, and you're way overestimating, and lots of people do way overestimate with the Conservative Party. Okay, Theresa May was meant to win a landslide. She didn't. Jacob Rees-Mogg might be popular with 50,000 people who are young, but one, the majority of Tory voters aren't young, and two, have you asked what the elder generation think about Jacob Rees-Mogg? They probably would like him.
With him on a lot of points. Exactly. Like, this is the thing.
But they'd probably also agree with David Davis, wouldn't they? But they'd probably also agree with David Davis, though, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I know, and I kind of agree, and that's the reason why he's the front runner. I'm just saying though that Mogg seems to have come from nowhere, and now he's second favourite. Like, that is a ridiculous thing to do in politics. Like, out of all the people you could have picked, to come from absolutely nowhere immediately after, and it mirrors Corbyn as well. Because I remember when Corbyn
Andrea Leadsom.
Yeah, and Leadsom as well. I remember when Corbyn got on the ballot for Labour, I was thinking to myself, and Andy Burnham's going to win this by a landslide.
Oh my god, this is fantastic.
Obvious.
This is so good. Oh my god, fizzy medley. Gosh, after hearing this, I don't think I can be a Conservative anymore. Brilliant. Join my Labour bandwagon. Join us as we can down Theresa May in her government. If you're not going to be a Conservative
anymore, go to UKIP, please.
Oh,
kidding, lol. No, I don't care how you vote.
Oh dear. No, but seriously, I think there is a youth kind of thing that's indoctrinated with Jacob Rees-Mogg. Some of those people aren't even going to be Conservative. Let's point that out. So it's not 32,000. Let's knock that figure down to about 28,000, right? So we're already on less than that. How many of those people are going to be a member of the Conservative Party? Knock it down further. How many of those people would probably vote for someone else who was a more plausible candidate than Jacob Rees-Mogg? Knock it down further. Then what do you have? You have enough to stage a little party at your local village hall. That's how many people you have to vote for Jacob Rees-Mogg. Come on, like, he's not realistically going to be leader of the Conservative Party. There are just so many people with bigger personalities.
Come back and bite you, Chris, to be frank.
They really won't.
Well, that was what everybody was thinking about Corbyn when he got in. I'm telling you now. Like, everybody was predicting Burnham would win it before the media got on the back of Corbyn.
But this is a different scenario.
No,
okay?
it isn't. It's completely the same.
No. Let me say.
The only thing that's different is they let the members vote in Labour and they don't in the Conservatives.
Exactly, and that's why he will never be
No,
Conservative. No,
because
wait
I
a
don't
minute.
agree.
No, he will
The
never be
whole
because
aim-
just let me explain. Corbyn was an outsider because he was. When he first got he only scraped his way through the party,
Yeah,
the
and
MPs.
Rees-Mogg will be
he only
exactly
scraped
the
his way
same.
through the MPs to get the nominations he needed, right?
Yeah.
Once he got to the actual party, he just continued to get more and more and more popular. Jacob Rees-Mogg he's risen, but he's risen before it's gone to the MPs. So the only chance he would have, and I would say
Is
it's
if
a
he
valid
ran-
increase,
if he ran the
is if
coup
he got
himself.
past the MPs. But right now, putting him at 7-1 is the most ridiculous claim ever because you don't know the
that's not
MPs
what
are going to back him.
As we can see from the bookies here, they're the ones that are.
You don't know that the
Predicting
MPs
it, yeah?
are going to back him. And quite
Like, let's have a
frankly...
look. 7,
Yes,
7.
but he's 7-1.
13-2.
But let me just say, the MPs that would back Jacob Rees-Mogg are going to be the MPs that would also back David Davis and Boris Johnson. So that's going
That's probably the case.
Exactly.
But I think
Exactly.
But I
Probably.
think it's interesting
Most
though that he has
likely.
made it that far. Like there must be
Yeah, well
something
done from
going for
him. Let's give him a
but
round
I
of
think
applause and now let's shut up.
Let's be looking at the.
Does UKIP have cookies? No, but the Labour Party do.
No, they don't.
Yes, we do.
The cookies for everybody. You might get a crumb. But the point I'm making is like.
At least he'd get a cookie if we started sharing them round rather than taking them all for ourselves.
you'd get about a crumb. But as I say,
crumb?
yeah, it would be a crumb.
As far as I know, there's
no-
only 3 people watching them.
Put it
than us
this way,
two.
I always make the argument that it's feeding the 5,000 with Labour. It'll be a miracle if you manage to get it round everyone.
Oh my god, what a shame. We'd actually feed people
You won't feed anyone.
rather than just leave people with no food whatsoever. I hate
five
that
fish and
kind
2 loaves or
of...
whatever
What
it
a
is.
terrible policy that is.
Anyway, let me carry on. Anyway, let me make me point. Corbyn is the one Conservative that is appealing to the youth, and I think
Corbyn is
no,
the one Conservative. I know he voted Remain, but you know...
Sakes, let me finish. Right. Jacob Rees-Mogg is the one Conservative that is appealing to the youth, and I think that the Conservatives would be very, very daft not to go for him after the massive loss in the youth vote. Like, I know fair enough that the Conservatives have never really had the youth vote. It's always been with older people that
And
they've
they
always
never
voted
will.
for. Well, I think you might be surprised, and I think that Jacob
No.
Rees-Mogg might be the person to break that
No.
deficit. I think that maybe, just maybe, because
Theresa
might
Maybe.
break through. Theresa, there we go. We've linked into the title.
But I think that could be the case, and this might be the Tories' one shot at reclaiming that youth vote for the first time in a very long time.
I think in a month, if we have this discussion, we'll find out whether Jacob Rees-Mogg has a realistic
Well,
chance.
if there's a Tory leadership
Because
race in a month.
Momentum's probably died by then, let's not lie.
Well, it might just be a passing meme. You never know. But I personally think that it's going to be around to stay for as long as until there's a Tory leadership vote. And let's be honest,
you're just a bit indoctrinated
a Tory,
in Moggmentum,
a Tory
to be honest.
leadership vote is on the cards. You can't deny it. It is going to.
In 2 years'
It's
time, I
likely
think.
it may happen.
I am a bit savage.
Yes, you are.
No, I think in 2 years' time it probably is, and that's probably why I'd say
Well,
David Davis
maybe
is...
I've
Just give me a minute,
absorbed a bit
just
too many
quick
memes.
thing,
But let's be honest, you're indoctrinated in Corbyn. So there you go.
Just a bit off on the topic. Just talking about why David Davis might be favourite, because obviously the probability which is dictated about when this leadership race is to happen is after Brexit, and the rumours are that May now sees her purpose as seeing us through Brexit and then resigning to leave the place for someone else to take the message further forward and then go to the electorate, whatever, etc. That's why David Davis could be favourite, because he's seen as a very strong negotiator, seen as leading this kind of Brexit, and if that's successful, then he would be your prime candidate to take over from Theresa May, and would also be a very good unifying figure for the party as well. As I think that After Brexit, does the Conservative... This is down... Taking a different question, but still trying to interrogate you for the fact that you think Jacob Rees-Mogg has a realistic chance of winning the Conservative Party leadership. After having Brexit, the biggest political issue of our time, would having someone as controversial as Jacob Rees-Mogg as leader be a good idea?
Yeah, but this...
Answer the question, don't go, yeah, but this, but...
Well, I won't go into what's about.
It wouldn't be,
that's
would
the
it?
That's the zone of a Labour voter. So what was the question? Jacob Rees-Mogg would have a realistic chance of being Conservative Party leader. Is that what you're saying?
My question was, after Brexit, which undoubtedly everyone must agree is the biggest political decision that's happening ever, well, besides climate change, is the biggest thing that's happening in the 21st century for UK people and citizens of the UK, would it be sensible to have such a controversial leader as Jacob Rees-Mogg?
But is he controversial?
Yes. He's a political figure, has no position in cabinet, has been around as just a basic backbencher.
Well, this is where I'd say that, yeah, why couldn't he be? He's come from I know he hasn't come from nowhere, but
smells of Corbyn, doesn't it?
It's happened before. Like, look at when they elected. I know I'm going to come back to Alec Douglas-Home again, but like that was the last time somebody like that got in. I know it went very, very badly wrong for the Conservatives that time round, but I think it's possible that he could be that somebody that controversial could get in. Like, considering now that Corbyn is leader of the Labour Party and is looking very similar, like, Corbyn's not exactly a non-controversial figure. Let's be very realistic here.
Well, we all know that, don't we? Just watch our last video.
Well, he is a controversial figure.
Yes, he is, absolutely.
So, to say that Mogg doesn't have a chance is to say almost similar to Corbyn, and we know that Corbyn does.
But you're ignoring the fact that the political way that they elect a leader in the two parties is completely and utterly different. And the reason why is because I would maybe agree with you if
it was done in the same way.
Yeah, if Jacob Rees-Mogg just needed 60 nominations and then it was put to the members, he'd have a chance. But when it has to be now down to two candidates, his voters have to assemble behind either him, David Davis, Boris Johnson, or Michael Gove. And quite frankly, none of them are going to pick Jacob Rees-Mogg.
This is where I come back to rational party thesis.
And he's already said he supports Michael Gove in any leadership contest, by the way. Let me just make that clear.
I was unaware of that. But this is where I come back to rational party thesis. The party is designed to win votes. That is what it's always after doing. And I think that if they see this groundswell for Mogg, they'll basically take him aside and they'll basically say, we'll back you to be the party leader. And I don't think he'd say no.
Does the fact that half the people tuning into this programme have never heard of Moggmentum probably indicate that it's not really as big as you think it is?
Well, maybe it isn't. I don't know. But all I know is it's clearly gaining some traction. It's coming into the mainstream media, and it could be the start of something very big. Nobody said Trump was going to be president of the United States when he first said to ran. No way you did. As soon as he announced.
Not as soon as he announced, but
I was going to say, when did you think it then?
As soon as he started doing very well in the actually no, as soon as he. No, it was before the Republican presidential candidacy. Because I predicted he would win the Republican and that he would go on to win the presidency before the Republican nominations was announced.
Well, I said he'd win when Hillary got nominated, the Democratic candidates. That was when I said he'd win.
Oh, I'd called it way before there.
I don't think any that's fair. That's fair.
Would have won.
That's fair. But let's be honest. I think that's when a lot of people started leaning towards Trump, and I think.
Yes.
We've got a long way to go before Jacob Rees-Mogg will seem like a logical candidate. Because look at how long it took. I'm going back to Corbyn again, but look at how long it took Corbyn to seem like he could legitimately run the country. It took a long time for that to happen, but until after he was elected leader. That took a very long time in terms of politics. So perhaps, all I'm saying is perhaps it will be a thing. Maybe it's just a dead meme and nobody knows what will happen.
Interesting point you mentioned the grassroots there. The grassroots of the Conservative Party, like I've said, isn't the youth. So it's not going to be the grassroots, because the grassroots got behind Corbyn, that's why he won. Grassroots, which is not the youth, are not going to get behind Jacob Rees-Mogg. Yeah, they overwhelmingly favour Boris Johnson.
They don't.
They do.
They don't.
They do. Did you see the Conservative Leadership Party polls on the last leadership election. He would have beaten any
Yeah, but
candidate that
Jacob
would have stood
Rees-Mogg
against
wasn't
him.
in that election, was he? So you can't make that comparison.
You really think Jacob Rees... No, Boris Johnson, by fact, is the most popular Conservative MP politician amongst their members.
I beg to differ. I
He
don't
is.
think that's true.
That
I
is
think
true.
In given enough time, Jacob Rees-Mogg
dear.
could become the front runner in the youth. I think
Yes,
that's
but he
very
doesn't
possible.
rhubarb on buildings and pretend that they bring jobs. He has
Yeah,
charisma,
but that's the thing, though.
but
And I
he
think
doesn't
that's
have
why he
that
will,
charisma.
because he doesn't come off as ridiculous at the same time. Like, I'd
But
never
does
vote
he
for
play
Boris
rugby
Johnson
and knock
because I
over
think he's
young
ridiculous.
Chinese children and then get laughed at?
Yeah, because he's ridiculous. Whereas Mogg really isn't. He's not as
I
ridiculous
bet
anyway.
there's a bigger meme movement
He's a
for
completely
Boris
stereotypical
Johnson than there
Tory.
is
He's not
for
as ridiculous as Boris
Moggmentum.
Johnson.
That's a big claim.
He doesn't do ridiculous things and create ridiculous acts. As Boris does. Like, that's the reason why I personally wouldn't vote for Boris, but I'd vote for Mogg. So there you go. I could be wrong about that. Very wrong indeed.
I think just as a final topic, and we've not got this written down here, so just to sort of wrap it up quickly.
Yeah, we've been going on
Can the
a bit too long.
Can the Conservative Party win in the 2020 election?
But if there's going to be one in 2020, it might be 2022.
Let's say it's 2020. Can the Conservative Party win? Chris Fairhurst, over to you.
Not if Theresa May's in. Not if Theresa May's in. I think personally, as you know, I think the greatest chances with Mogg, but or with Boris. Either of them would do fine, I think. But if with Theresa May in, no way. I don't think they'll win. I think Corbyn will win. I'd be very, very surprised if it wasn't the case.
I think the bigger question is not if Theresa May or a different Conservative politician is, but if Corbyn is in, because I think if Corbyn's allowed to be a Labour Party leader until 2020, he will win the next general election.
I don't. I think it's
Up the Corbyn!
I think that Theresa May will lose to Corbyn. I think that if
She already
Corbyn carries
has.
on the way he's going, and no one is there to take that sort of popular spotlight, as it were, away from him, then I think it's going to be very, very difficult for the Tories to win. I think it's going to be very
the
tough for them
Tories-
to win. I think that the Labour probably would win.
If the Tories
Under
want it,
Corbyn.
now the youth have got a flavour for the
Which
fact...
is why I'm saying
Sorry,
that you have to back
interrupt.
Boris or Mogg. You have to back one of the two to get even the Tories in with even a fighting chance.
I'm
I'd
gonna
say.
put my response plainly like this: if the Conservative Party want to beat the Labour Party in the 2020 election, they have to realise that the grassroots that have put Labour ahead in the polls as they currently are, that increased their vote majority in the last general election, was a youth movement. And what the Conservative Party are doing in terms of their policy on tuition fees, increasing it to 9,250, and their history of policies against the youth, they need to change that. The only way the Conservative Party can now outright win by a landslide majority in the 2020 election, in my opinion, is to recapture the youth, and that does not come through a figure. That does not come through a personality. That comes through promises. And that is what Corbyn has made to the youth of the UK.
I would beg to differ
promises.
and say that Corbyn has won the youth through a cult of personality, but that's just me. And I think a lot of people would also take my view as well. Because I think that Corbyn's personality does come into it a lot
Then
with
why
how he
does-
wins votes.
Why does the...
Same with Trump as well.
Why
To an
does,
extent.
yeah, but the youth voted for Clinton. Why does the youth overwhelmingly vote for the left then? If it's just non-personality.
Well, that could be something to do with just based like psychology at a political level, a political psychology anyway. Like youth naturally being more liberal because they have a lot less to lose, whereas the older more conservative because they have a lot more to lose. That could be a lot down to it. No, seriously, that is actually a general political psychology thesis.
Yeah.
Like there is it's seen as the reason why the old are more conservative than the young. It's just a way it seems to be with a lot of people over the span of their lives. It's unusual, I know, but it's a pattern that does evolve.
Right, okay, and
So that could be part of that.
let me have one final question before I think we make closing remarks. Final question. Should Theresa May resign? Yes or no?
Yes, because she won't win. She will not win the next election. I think she should resign due to rational party thesis. A party is designed to win votes, and with Theresa May in, the party will not win votes. So therefore, she should resign for the good of the party. That is my personal belief.
Agreed. My personal belief is also Theresa May should resign she went to the election thinking she would get a majority. She didn't. She lost. She declined in her votes, which showed the British electorate had rejected her. I think that she is not strong enough to take forward the negotiation with Brexit, and a new leader for the country is needed as soon as possible. I do not think there should be a general election. I do think the leader of the party should be Conservative, because they did have the largest majority at the last election, but they didn't have the largest majority because of Theresa May. They had the largest majority because most people just like the policies that the Conservatives had. I think she should resign, and I think in 2020 I look forward to having Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister.
God help us all. Anyway, I think that comes to the end of everything. We've covered Moggmentum, we've covered Theresa May, leadership battles, what have you. We've gone on a bit of an adventure, and I hope you've enjoyed your time with us. I hope you've enjoyed the time with us. If you're interested in more content like this, please subscribe. Please watch our next stream. We are not sure when it will be or what it's about, but we'll probably work that out later on. In fact, what do you think it should be about, Chris?
Well, obviously, like I said, we're going to do a book review of Douglas Murray, but we've both not read that yet.
We both don't have the book yet, so please give us some time on that.
I really do want to, although it's too tied into the Douglas Murray topic to do a discussion on Islam, religion, and freedom of speech, etc. And we've already kind of touched that issue.
We do want to cover it, but I think it's more important that we do that with Douglas Murray's book in mind. I think we could get all of that out there in the open quite easily, but obviously I've still yet to buy the book. I will be buying it very soon, and we've got to read it, we've got to exchange notes, we've got a lot to do for that topic, and I think hopefully we can make the production's values a bit higher, and
I'll tell you what,
do it recorded.
I've decided what our next video is.
Okay, what do you think?
Although normally our videos are on the current political issues, I think this next one should be a reflective video. And
are we going back in time?
We are going to do a video on our opinions on Margaret Thatcher, which promises to be an interesting debate.
So, Margaret Thatcher, neoliberalism.
Why don't we title it Thatcher, Heroine or Villain?
Well, I suppose that is a very interesting topic, and I'd be more than happy to discuss it with you.
There we go.
But
discussed live and agreed.
I think it will be discussed. I don't think it will be debated, because personally, I know I am the more conservative of the two of us, but as a northerner, I cannot like Thatcher. I just can't do it. So it won't be as vitriolic, sadly. You won't get as many vicious arguments over us over the last two videos, but I think it will be a lot of fun. It will be a lot of fun. If you like watching Thatcher get bashed, then you're gonna have a lot of fun.
No, I actually agree with a few things that Thatcher did.
So do I. But
which is a very controversial statement.
Different things.
That's a very controversial statement for someone on the left to make. But I'm going to provide an interesting, I think, approach to someone on the left talking about Thatcher, because she is renowned for her social policies being terrible. There are some things that Thatcher did that I think no one on the political spectrum should disagree with, and that's one of the things I will advocate. Our channel is not about dictating people on the left or right. We both have opinions that merge those lines. It is about looking at things, finding evidence, and
again going back to the terms of left and right as well. It's it's not clear cut, and I'm more right wing than you are, and I still say that I don't agree with a lot of Thatcher did. But I'm not that far right wing. No. Good God.
No, definitely
Good
not.
God, no.
Sorry. All we could do about so maybe our next couple of videos should be a reflection on the US election and a reflection on Thatcher.
Well, yeah. I suppose we can put two in the pipe there. We've got we definitely want to do the Trump election, because I actually wrote my dissertation on it. It didn't do very well, actually, but I can discuss it a little bit. I definitely want to discuss Trump. I definitely want to Trump and Clinton. I definitely want to discuss
Clinton and my bae Bernie Sanders.
And Sanders,
we can definitely mention him,
because that's also in my dissertation as well.
I love Bernie.
We can discuss that, and also we could discuss Thatcher, because I think it's like why we seem to have this new political economic sort of dynastic ideology coming through that we're seeing now. I think it's very important to take a look back at neoliberalism and Thatcher and Reagan and see where this idea came from. So if you're interested in that, and you're also interested in our Douglas Murray book review that's on its way, and also the Trump debate, please subscribe. And follow us on the relative social media at Facebook. We tend to share our things around. I'm Chris Stark first. You can find me on there.
I'm Chris Skur, so find me on there. I'd like to say a big thank you on my behalf to to my friends Fizzy Medley, Holly Gaudian, and also Keane, who's a mutual friend of ours, for all tuning in and asking questions.
Thank you very much
and
for
commenting
those.
while
we
we've
appreciate
been
the questions.
on. We hit a personal best of having up to 8 people watching at once, which is
I
fantastic.
only saw 7.
It got up to
you
8
got me,
at one
beat me
point,
there,
which
you
is
go.
very good. And
Fantastic.
hopefully we get more views on this video. It's been really enjoyable, really good discussion, being heated at times, especially over Moggmentum. I've enjoyed it, and I look forward to discussing Thatcher next week.
I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I think you should all tune in next week. We're not sure exactly the day when we're going to do it, because obviously we've got to work out when our schedules are, but we'll let you know. We'll definitely let you know.
And
Anyway,
we're off for a night out on the town, so good
yep,
night.
So if you're in York tonight and you want to get drunk and meet us, then please do. We won't buy you drinks or anything, but
You can
while
buy
we've
us
entertained
drinks.
you should buy us drinks. Okay. All right.
All right, thank you for tuning in, and we shall see you next week.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much.